Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the recap shows. It's been a bit for the Champion Draft Series. Previous week we had American holidays combined with the Open, lots of chaos, lots of stuff going on. But Champion Draft Series still continues, and it will up until the end of the year. And we have a lot of exciting stuff to talk about, as well as an announcement that I have at the end of this whole thing that I'm really excited for. So stay tuned for that. Aikado, how you been? We now have half of the people on this call are worlds qualified now.
True.
Mhm.
I was expecting the other half. I thought, last year's
Really?
qualifier, I thought you might sneak in, but unfortunately wasn't meant to be. But
Well, if that's the case, then maybe they shouldn't trust your opinion on the rest of this.
fair enough.
But I appreciate it. I appreciate it. No, it was a really exciting stuff that's been happening. You want to say anything about your journey?
No, it's just I won a tournament. I qualified for Worlds.
Mhm.
Worlds testing. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it, but it's exciting.
That's great. Are you allowed to? 'Cause this won't require you to say anything secretive, but what cards are you most excited for now that the whole set's been revealed and everything?
Oh my god, there's so much cool shit.
Yeah.
What I really like is that all three of the champions are really flexible. You can just throw them into anything. Sometimes you get a full archetype. You get Lurk or something, which is two champions that are married together, and that's 66% of your expansion. But there's just so much cool shit that you can do with the new champions. Can I say the card I'm least excited for?
Shh, go for it.
Have you seen this stupid fucking dog?
I know
The
which dog you're
2-mana
talking about.
The 2-mana 2/3 Freljord. It attacks and buffs all your stuff. That card needs to
It's
just
just
not.
Nico. It's just Nico.
Yeah. It is certainly one of the cards of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, it's going great.
Well, that is great. Oh man, we have a couple of matches to get into today that are happening this week. Oh, something for the players, since we're talking about, or something for the viewers about the players, since we're talking about new cards. There are new champions getting added into the pool after this expansion goes live. This week's matches happen before those new champions are released. However, once those champions do end up in the pool, the players that are most successful this week in their matches will get the first blocks to pick from the pool. So
How does that work?
there's a couple of extra stakes on it. So so let's say some players go 3-0, some players go 2-1, some players go 1-2, and some players go 0-2 in this match. They will be broken up into that, and then ties are broken by their seasonal score over the course of the season. Because I think you remember we did trades were very different last season. We changed the drafting system to sort of accommodate more towards trading. But when we did it last season, it was in the mid-season break, in the halfway point.
Yeah.
And this is a little different because there's only going to be, after they get these champions, 2 more weeks of the regular season, just the way the expansion has lined up. So we're doing things a little bit differently. And this way, the stakes, there's a couple of extra stakes for this week. You could be Cephalopod and sort of ahead of the rest of the competition, but if you get O2'd, some people may get their picks beforehand. There's also a couple of other minor clauses to keep someone from taking all the new champions at once. If they're first pick and stuff, there's limits on what you can do until a certain point in time. But outside of that, there's a lot of pressure on these players if they have a new toy they want to get their hands on, because they might not even want necessarily Mordekaiser in their team, but if there's a new Deathless card they really want to get their hands on, then they might want to trade in for a Swain or something if they want to get that card in their roster. So that's going to be still very beneficial. And then there's the management of points. It's going to get real complex, and I'm interested to see what players do.
Yeah, sounds like it'll be fun.
Speaking of trades, Majin Bay, you might notice, has a familiar champion here in his roster. This Lee Sin right here. Something that a lot of people. I remember watching Majin's draft, and a lot of his chat was just like, "Why don't you pick Lee Sin? Why don't you pick Lee Sin?" And he was like, "It's not even that good with what he was going for." But now he's got Lee Sin, and I'm sure he's happy about it.
Yeah, he does have Lee Sin. Majin's sort of known for Lee Sin. You know, back in the day, he won his first seasonals with Zoe Lee Sin. So, you know, it was an exciting time. And would you look at that? He has Zoe, he has Lee Sin. You know, there's a chance that we see a comeback. You know, I think a big thing that Lee Sin lost was 6 copies of Eye of the Dragon because of the Crescendum change, you know, a year ago or whatever. But now you have Heel Pony, and that's kind of like a 6th copy of Eye of the Dragon if you think about it.
And it's pretty true. You don't even have to like flow for that.
Exactly. Definitely. You know what? I think it gives them a little bit more flexibility. Though I'm excited to see that Majin has finally started playing Zoe Yumi. I think that we talked about it for quite a bit as an option for him. As a deck that felt really strong and felt like it would do pretty well within his lineup. I was like, nah, Majin will never play it. It's not a Majin deck. I'm very excited to have been proven wrong and that Majin is finally playing it. But if he ends up just turning that into Zoe Lee Sin, I'm gonna be a little bit disappointed.
I was also very excited to be seen as like wrong in that regards, and it wasn't just like him jamming linear paths either. If you watch the match between him and Slay, like he was doing some like very interesting moves of like swapping Yumi with like weapons to like move health around and like change the buffs around and like work around Kane, and it was very heads up. And for a deck that might not be Majin's comfort deck, it was very interesting to watch him navigate in that way.
Yeah, no, it definitely can have a little bit more play to it than, you know, people think you just jam elusives and you just win the game, and you can't do that, but there's a little bit more to it than that. But yeah, no, excited to see that he's you know, spreading out, you know, spreading his wings, he's trying stuff out. Yeah, very happy to see it.
On the flip side, though, we have L Games coming off of a recent win against, I believe it was Jay Sensational. That could be been an earlier game. No, it was against Bust, I believe. Bust was the most recent victory. And he has been representing this Azir Aurelia in his lineup for several weeks now and has just not brought it. But it's been there, always looming as a threat.
Sometimes the threat of an Azir Aurelia is more impactful than Azir Aurelia actually showing up, I suppose. It feels like there are probably like weeks where it would make sense. You know, speaking of weeks where it makes sense, like if you're expecting Majin to bring Master Yi Rise like he has for, you know, 10 times, or the newly acquired Lee Sin, Azir Aurelia historically was a Lee Sin counter. Azir Aurelia historically should be very good into these Ionia piles. You know, Thresh Nasus is a little bit sus of a matchup, but you know, if there were a week for it, I think this is a very reasonable week for it.
Yeah, and like if Thresh Nasus is the only thing that Majin can bring that might potentially be in the way, then that could potentially just be like a ban, and you just hope that whatever else he brings, if it's Lee Sin and Rise, that potentially you just run him over.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely, the potential is always there when you have Azir Aurelia. Yeah, especially because it recently got the buff with like Desert's Wrath. Like it's a little bit more lethal even.
Yeah, no, I definitely enjoyed that Desert's Wrath.
Yeah, we talked about in the past how L Games just has like infinite flexibility within their lineup. And you know, continuing to show that, it's a complete total crapshoot every single week on what they're actually going to end up bringing, whether it's burn, whether it's the misrays, whether it's control. Like there's so much stuff that they can do, that, you know, I like their chances in terms of like catering a lineup towards beating Majin.
So you think that they have the advantage going into this matchup?
I think so. I think so. It feels like they should. This is played before patch, right?
This is played on Monday, yeah.
Okay. So before patch, so no new tools yet. But I do think that there's definitely still like strong stuff they could be doing. You know, maybe like Azir Irelia, Zed Hecarim, and then like some Mithra's deck or something, right? I think that's like a type of lineup that's probably going to be very good into a lot of the control piles that Maj will want to play. Um, yeah, I think it's a very hard to deal with deck or lineup rather.
No, you know what? I'm gonna have to agree with you on this. I'm looking more and more at L Games roster, and I'm like, unless he's doing like some harrowing Darius Nar Zed sort of thing, I think Majin should be scared of this roster.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of like anti-control style decks that can make life really difficult for Majin. I'm definitely we talk about it every time. I'm a big fan of the way the L Games has sort of set themselves up to be difficult to prep into, because they have so much flexibility and so many options. Like even if Majin has the hard read and it's like, okay, they're gonna bring Azir Irelia, they're gonna bring Zed Hecarim, I can't bring Rise Master Yi, I can't bring Lee Sin, so he ends up cooking something up and ends up with a couple like weaker lists that maybe are better into that. At the end of the day, like Elegance VR could just bring like triple Mistrays or something. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh well, I missed. Feels bad.
Oh, I see what you did there. Uh, I want to see. I kind of want to see Majin do something with this Nami that's been sitting in his roster. I don't know what. If it's like a Nami Yumi or Nami Zoe sort of thing, or maybe like a Nami Yi. I don't know, but I want to see him do something with it. I feel like it's just sitting there as like a empty tool that has not been utilized.
Maybe even like a Nami Lee Sin. It's a historical deck that has seen a lot of changes. Obviously, Nami
Yeah.
not quite as good as she once was, and Burblefish and Shelly. But I do think that there's still like potential there, especially in like a relatively lower powered format. I could see it squeaking its way in.
That would be something. And that would leave up like Zoe for Majin to potentially do something else, get like some other Targon deck going in. If you had like Lee Nami, Rise, Master Yi, and then Zoe Yumi or Zoe Jace or something.
Yeah. No, there's definitely a lot of options available for for Majin, with this for sure.
Hold on. Before we continue, I would like to address the raid of Wildman here for everyone who. Thank you very much, first of all, for showing up. I want to let you guys know what's going on right now. This is the pregame show for the Champion Draft Series matches that will be taking place this upcoming Monday with our 10 players. We are currently going over the match between Majin Bay and L Games BR. The Champion Draft Series, the way it is that the players each draft a roster of champions. You can see these players' rosters here, and we recently had Majin acquire not Master Yi, Lee Sin to so many E's, and they now have the access to that champion. So trades happen during the season, and they fight each other utilizing decks that they build from their rosters, and there's certain deck building rules along with their rosters. So like they have to utilize all 6 champion slots in a deck. They can't use a region's cards unless they have a champion from that region in their deck. That's why you see like the region access that these players have access to. Majin can't play any Noxus or Demacia cards. L Games can't play Bilgewater, Targon, or Demacia, but they have access. He has access to like 3 different Shadow Owls decks, which we were just talking about. He has done before, and we're sort of talking about like all these rosters and how they can sort of fit in. And then we've got a little bit of surprise at the end of the stream, so stay tuned for that. But Aikado's here as the sort of meta expert, as he's actually played in the series in the first season, and is giving, so far, has a much better track record for predicting matches than myself.
Have we gone back and looked? Because it might not be true. I might actually have a poor record on it.
I have gone back and looked, and like there have been weeks where like you and I only disagreed on like one thing, and on that thing
Hmm.
you were right. So it's it's actually you have so far a pretty good record against me. I have
Nice.
my points,
Yeah.
but
No, the format, if people aren't familiar with it, is very exciting for the Champion Draft Series. There's a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of lineup building. There's a lot of creativity going into each week. And yeah, we're just running down the some of the matchups coming up for this week.
yeah. So finishing up the Majin versus L Games match, uh, you said you're leaning into L Games. I sort of agreed. Is there anything else that?
No, I think L Games just has flexibility. I think that's the name of the game here. Is that L Games just has infinite flexibility within their lineup, and Majin, has like a few strong archetypes that he brings like almost every single time. And if L Games is able to find an angle on that, I think that they definitely can be advantaged here.
Yeah, and their Majin currently has one more win than L Games, but I'm pretty sure if L Games wins this match, he will end up going ahead of Majin on the leaderboard. So it's
Ooh.
pretty neck and neck.
Yeah, and with only a couple weeks left, like it's a pretty important time to be
Mm-hmm.
doing that.
Especially because like I think no player has more than 4 wins right now, and top cut is the top 6 players.
Hmm.
But if you make top 2, you get to skip ahead into the semifinals. You get
You
like a
get that
bye for the
bye.
first match.
Yeah.
So that's like really important.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then the extra, the extra multiplier of the new champions coming in,
Hmm.
and doing well this week, meaning that you might have or an earlier shot at those as well.
Hmm.
There's a lot of pressure on the players this week.
Yeah, so we'll see how that turns out for these two players. I believe both of them usually stream their matches, so that's going to be an exciting one to watch on Monday. Going now into our next match, we have Cephalopods Foxborough FC versus Shotox's Canadian Chime Slimes and their rosters. Both of these players have held the first place on the leaderboard for some time. I think currently, seasonal wise score, they're tied, but Cephalopod has a few more points over Shotox at the moment, and he has one more champion in his roster as well. What do you think about this matchup, Aikado?
One thing that I really like about both these players is that they're both willing to cook. They're both willing to just build the most silly stuff in order to have an advantage if they know what their opponent's going to bring. Which means that when they end up playing against each other, it's really hard to have, like a clear read on what they're actually going to bring. I mean, even just some of the lists that Shotox has brought in the last couple weeks, Lissandra, Victor Lux, like, Omi's out here cooking. And I think that's exciting. I think that's really exciting. And also it makes it hard to evaluate because, like, I could throw it a dartboard, just try to find combinations of champions and like maybe they would bring it, but like who knows.
And they have like such a variety of champion archetypes as well. It's not like they all have champions that all do sort of like the same thing, but like Victor is very different from Annie, which is very different from Alawi, very different from uh, Elise and such. But then also like the stuff you can do with Kindred or the stuff you can do with Rumble, Jack, Echo, like Vayne can just sort of fit into anything. And most decks like attacking, so there's like a lot of flexibility within their lineup as well that sort of caters to their ability to cook and craft, as you said.
Yeah, and even then, like this last week, Cephalopod brought Echo Orn, and you're thinking to yourself, what could Echo Orn be? Did you think Iceborne Legacy Daring Poros? Because that's what it is. Like, no, there's just so much cooking. There's so much available for these players. Like, I think it'll definitely be an exciting match just to see what they end up bringing.
I remember when we were talking about like Cephalopod versus Spids like a week or two ago, and we were like, what do we even expect these players to bring? And I find
Yeah.
myself in a very similar position right now.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think that Shotox has shown his ability to go a little bit more off the wall in terms of some of the stuff that he brings. But each time that they bring a deck, like it makes sense. Like I get what they're going for, and I think that you can see like the logic behind it. They're not literally randomly throwing stuff together. It's just that they're so flexible and they're so malleable in terms of like their view of the game and their view of these cards that they're able to put them together in like a really interesting way. And I think that's really exciting.
All right. Now that we've established how hard of a choice this is, Who who is your choice for coming out on top in this matchup?
God, I mean, they're so flexible, but I feel like Cephalopod has like some really strong things that are hard to deal with for Shotox, but Shotox has such powerhouses. I mean, just Victor. Victor on his own makes a deck, and can be so hard to deal with. Um, but I would lean towards Cephalopod. I feel like Cephalopod's lineup is like a little bit higher power level on average. You know, I think a lot of the decks that he's going to put together are, feel pretty strong. Yeah, I feel like that's the case. But Shotox could bring anything, and like the issue is, how do you cater your lineup to somebody like Cephalopod or like Shotox? How do you cater your lineup like that? It's very hard.
It is challenging. I think I'm going to lean a little bit more towards Shotox, if not just to contest with you on this one.
Okay.
Because I feel like while Cephalopod, well, these guys are both like incredible chefs, and Cephalopod definitely has a very strong roster. I feel like if we took down like champions individually in Shotox's roster, they have a lot more things that they can do individually, where I think it might be a little bit easier for Shotox to predict Cephalopod's roster or build something that's good into it or something that he won't expect versus the reverse for Cephalopod. I think Cephalopod has to play a little bit more of a guessing game when it comes to what to prepare for than Shotox does. They may prove me wrong here, but like so many of these champions, like we've seen Lux be like a spell blasting mage like before, but sometimes she's been there just for rallies. Elise can be here for like a very aggressive deck, or can be here for like a very control-y, high value Shadow Owls deck, and you don't feel bad about that champion being in your deck. You already mentioned the strength of Victor. And even things like Renekton, these like overwhelm champs that we have, can fit into this roster so many different ways based on the regions that they have access to. I think it's going to be very hard for Cephalopod to prepare for Shotox in this matchup, and I think it's going to be so easy for him to overpredict and sort of like beat himself in that sort of way.
That's fair. That's fair. We talk about champions, and I think that a lot of Shotox's decks are built around the champions, and they do strong things. I feel like Cephalopod, oftentimes it's just not even looking at the champions. It's just regions. Well, Echo isn't really Echo. Echo is Piltover and Zon, and Piltover and Zon is Daring Poros, and the lines that he finds to build some of these decks. That's it. I mean, even if he does decide to go with the champion route, like Ornn is a very strong champion. He always has access to like Vayne Ornn or Vayne Rumble. The Jack set is like always a looming opportunity there. Echo Zillion also. There's so many different like really strong champion combinations here. Even the Kindred. I think that his flexibility with the Kindred has been notable throughout the year, or throughout the series here. But yeah, I just like I like Cephalopod's chances. I like his chances here.
Absolutely, and I definitely don't think it's going to be a stomp either way. I think we're probably going to go to a game 3. I think that this is going to be like probably the match of the week, if I'm being quite honest.
I could see it. I could definitely see it. I mean, this is two people contending for the top of the standings. Yeah, I mean, it'll be a very interesting week, that's for certain.
All right, so we're going to move on to the next match. Grandpa Roji and the Extrusive Elementals versus Bandle City Buster Shots with FTP Bust. Both of these players currently not in the top cut. Both of them really trying to make their way up there, so this match is going to be pretty important for them.
Yeah, that makes it even more important. I think that Roji is literally 1 point ahead of Bust here. He's a win ahead and like a point ahead. So this game's very important to sort of try to separate yourself out from the bottom of the standings and like have a shot at making that top cut here.
Yeah, so we are going to have to see. I'm gonna get this out of the way. Bust has been bringing like a lot of like very board-based decks in recent weeks, especially now that he's moved away from timeline since that nerf has came before
Yeah.
recently. A lot of board-based decks, and I think Roji, his lineup and his preferred playstyle, really like playing against board-based decks.
100%. And Roji's sort of been leaning back into that. He did some experimentation for a few weeks, and it wasn't quite hitting. So he's back to playing the hits. He's back to playing the Cultists, the Talia Malphite, the Elites, the Zerazigs.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's back to playing the hits there. So I would not be surprised if he ends up running that back as a just a very strong mid-range lineup. That said, Bust has been playing basically Jax Horn. It was playing Jax Braum, I believe, but it's literally just Jax Horn. You've seen it before. And then basically Ash LeBlanc in LeBlanc Trundle, and then a Poppy Jarvan that's just like elites, right? Like it's a lot of board-based stuff. It'll be interesting to see if he's able to sort of make the transition to what I would say his best bet would be a more aggressive playstyle. I think that maybe if you can bring like a strong aggro plan, you can deal with what Roji has to offer. Maybe if we can get Jinx in here, maybe like a Lulu Poppy. Maybe there's like a really low to the ground style of a lineup that Bust can take to take advantage of Roji, because otherwise, yeah, Roji's just gonna go bigger than you, and he is just going to beat your face in these mid-range mirrors.
I still think that even if Bust is able to bring in like some aggro package, and he has Jinx, right? He has a lot of the Orbital Swarm too. He can make that happen. What you're saying is very much a feasible possibility. But I think Roji has proven, you can ask Shadux not Shadux, Cephalopod from his last matchup, that he can hold his own against aggressive decks.
Yeah, no, even if they're slightly favored into Roji's style of decks, Roji's style of decks can still just get there oftentimes. The lineup that I'm looking at here, maybe it's like a Jinx Lulu, and then maybe like Tristana LeBlanc, where LeBlanc is giving you access to like Fire Spitter and Might and like Fervor. Maybe like that type of direction could be kind of strong. But like try to find what your third deck starts looking like, and it gets a little bit hard. Maybe you can go bigger. Maybe that's, I don't know, going bigger than Malphite's really hard.
It is pretty challenging. What I have seen from Bust so far this season, what I guess I want to see him improve on a little bit as we go into these later weeks, is I think he is getting a little too, I don't want to say like linear, but a little too hard focused on like the strategies of like what he wants to do, and isn't as focused on like maybe preparing for a little bit of what his opponent wants to do. A lot of decks that he's brought have like, especially in like the mid-range matchups, brought like very little interaction. We actually saw him lose against L Games last week against a bunch of just like dinky elusive units because his elites deck did not have blocking Badger Bear or Sharpsight in it. And without either of those, and that was something that L Games said, I'm looking at your previous lists and I'm taking advantage of that. That is something that I think is being abused on the side of L Games opponents week after week after week, and I really want to see him like just like pull it together and like maybe exchange a few cards in each list, be like, okay, this is the strategy I want to go for, but now I'm gonna make my matchups a little bit more favorable.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, blocking Badger Bear is a card that was released in the last year, and Elites players just want to play a list from 2021. They don't want to make any changes, so
Okay.
I consider that. No, I think that's a super fair call out, especially, in regards to, specifically your opponents bringing like elusives to take advantage of it. Sometimes you have to be a little bit more mindful and, have a little bit more flexibility in your game plan, and maybe, a little bit more interaction in that. Yeah, I think that's super fair. And I think that like coming into a week where you're probably unfavored, just like on paper, like this is the time to like really, to really make a change and like really take a bold move, and be able to sort of put yourself in a better position coming up on playoffs.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
am I hearing that both of us are sort of favoring Roji in this matchup?
I think Roji's favored. I do think Roji's favored. I think that, Bus has some of the tools, if they're able to find the lineup and, find the right draws and line up properly into Roji, especially because Roji's, doing Worlds prep right now. So I don't, I think it's likely that Roji ends up bringing, back a lineup that we've seen in the past. He might do a little bit of cooking, but yeah, I would lean towards that. I feel like Roji's a little bit favored here, but Bust has the opportunity.
Chat saying triple Yordle lineup, Paparo Simulator.
Paparo OP. Paparo is so OP. There's no way you could lose.
Everyone loves Paparo.
I mean, if he had access to Targon, he could play like the Teemo Kale deck. With different champions, but it's always Paparo is like a pretty strong card. But maybe like a Paparo deck is that third deck that I was talking about. I was trying to find like the third one. Like a Tristana Might deck, a Jinx Lulu, and then maybe a Paparo deck.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what he brings. That's going to be something we want to keep our eyes out for when Roji and him play on Monday. We're getting into our fourth and second to last match of next week. We've got Slay of Los Churlangas versus Jay Sensational, the Windswept Warriors. I'll point out something, and I don't mean to like throw any sort of shade towards Jason, but we have seen a few recent weeks of Yasuo not coming out to play. And we've also seen a few weeks of players just not necessarily running over Jason, but he's had a little bit more trouble since he stopped bringing Yasuo.
So you're saying he needs to bring more Yasuo? He just needs to bring Yasuo every week, and that's his ticket.
Well, I think Yasuo is especially good into what Slay brings every week, especially if you're banning Seraphine. I'm not just saying that to say it, but I think that's pretty good for him.
I think that's fair. A certain amount of that might be, survivorship bias or something where, he's bringing Yasuo when Yasuo is favored. And when Yasuo is favored, Yasuo does very strong things. So, maybe some amount of that could be attributed to that. But on the other hand, yeah, looking at, Slay's lineup, Slay, we've talked about the flexibility of some other lineups. Slay is not a lineup that I would say lends itself to being particularly flexible. It maybe could, but I think that we've seen basically the same lineup almost every week from him.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Few changes.
So I definitely think that Jason is favored here. And yeah, I do think it's a pretty good call out to be like, you know what, that Yasuo guy, this is his time to come off the bench because he should be very well into the Kanatrox and the Dragons that Slay has been so inclined to bring.
Yeah, now what else do you potentially expect Jason to bring? Do you think it's another Galio Udyr week?
We're hitting on the hits, but I mean they're hits for a reason. I do think Galio Udyr, it's really big. It's really hard to deal with. The real question is Ashe. Is there something we could do with Ashe? Because the newly acquired was a Lee Sin. It was a Lee Sin that I don't think had been used even a single time. So now getting access to another Freljord champion, maybe we end up seeing, Ashe Nico could be interesting. I think Ashe Nocturne sort of stands out as like the spooky Ashe harrowing rekindler deck. I think that's definitely an option. I think there's definitely options available. Maybe I'm not sure what the third deck is.
Oh, you can do the Karma double 7-mana Frostbite spell. I forget the name of, but
Winter's Breath.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm seeing the vision.
Which honestly would be pretty good against Slay's roster.
Slay runs out these mid-range decks. You can definitely take advantage of them.
Janna Fizz with Heavy Metal Temple, maybe. Cephalopod saying in chat right now.
Janna Fizz, so it's going to be Bilgewater with Heavy Metal Temple. If you're looking to just hard bully Aatrox, you could hard bully Aatrox. I think that is I think that is a very valid line here. Yeah, just beat up on Aatrox.
You could also do a similar list to what Shodox run last week, but instead of Victor Lysandra, it's Ash Janna, and you're doing the 6-drop Ayula Nula or whatever her name is, the sea monster that doubles elemental spells, which is just like Karma but with all those spells. Could potentially see something powerful with that. As if I don't remember names of cards. I like the pretty pictures, but the 2-mana Freljord spell Stormbreaker +1/+3 combat trick.
Sky Splitter.
Sky Splitter, yeah. That spell when doubled just makes anything live.
Yeah. It is a lot of health that you can have for very little mana investment. I think the other thing that stands out to me is, if he wanted to play like a Janna Fizz, like the Glorious Evolution Shellfolk deck, put in some Explorers. The Attune is really nice, even on like your Glorious Evolution turn. You can just break some weapons, survive for a few turns, and then these decks like can't really deal with what you're cooking. On turn 7 you play Glorious Evolution, and I think, I don't know. You're banning Seraphine. So yeah, I'm not sure what Kane Aatrox or Dragons do about that. Is there any chance that Slay gets off the lineup and finds something else?
It's week 7. I'm gonna have to say it's very unlikely. I am open to being wrong, but man has
Giga Chad just committed to the bit.
He brought, I think, Viego Riven once, and then was off it for the rest of the season so far.
I've been highlighting it this entire year. There's 2 champions sitting right by each other, and I feel like would be really good in CDS. I want to see Riven Quinn. Show me the Riven Quinn. I think that you slap some Overwhelm on some scout units. I think that there's a lot of like Cataclysm shenanigans you can do with Riven. Fire Spitter's in the game. I want to see Riven Quinn. Show me Riven Quinn.
We've got Aatrox Reavers with Pike in chat.
True.
Get Pike on the board.
I could see it. I could see it. I'm not gonna say that Aatrox Reavers is a good option, but it certainly is an option. I think, okay, so like I feel like I've highlighted like this exact lineup like every single week. I'm like, okay, so you play Nora Viego, and then you play Riven Quinn, and then you can pick what your third deck is, live your life. But I feel like there's a different look here that I think is available that I would like to see, but it seems like Slay is very happy with the decks that they got and the champions they got. Is hoping to ride that in. Hopefully able to turn it around. Hasn't been having the strongest.
Yeah, I mean, here. He did lose last week, but it was very close. I'll say that it was very close versus Majin. He absolutely annihilated Majin game 1 with like Aesol on turn 8 into Dragon's Clutch. Man stood no chance.
Yeah, sometimes it'd be like that. I will say, Jason is currently 7th in the standings, so a win, hopefully pushing him into that top cut. Slay, is trying to climb up and trying to have a shot here. Like, it starts with beating someone like Jason, who like is your competition, is someone who you would have to pass in order to make the top cut. So like, it starts right here. If you're gonna make it, it starts right here.
Yeah, both of these players, like it's very important for Slay for that reason, but also, as you mentioned, it's important for Jason too, because if Jason can't pull out a win here and like L Games does or something, then he falls like even further behind.
Yeah.
Roji wins, then it's just like it gets really difficult for him.
Definitely the case. Gonna have to just start winning a lot. I do think the advantage here is in Jason's court. I think Jason has a lot of the tools to deal with a lot of what Slay is going to try to bring. And yeah, I think that you nailed it at the start. Yasuo plus Udyr Galio and insert third deck. Yeah,
very well might be like Ash Karma, like you were saying.
Yeah, Ash Karma, Ash Nocturne. Do we have Noxus? It's just Katarina.
Just Katarina, yeah.
So we can't go Ash Nox. Unless, is there another Yasuo deck you could build? Can you go Yasuo? I think that's a Yasu no.
It'd be like Mono Ionia or something.
Yeah. Which I'm not sure if that's the I don't know if that's the sauce.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, no, I think Jason has the advantage in this one.
All right. Well, I'm in complete agreement with you here. So we can move on to the last match of the week. It's going to be Spids' Redeemed Qualities versus Sir Termund and the Empire's Gladiators. Both of these players doing very well this season so far.
Yeah, both these players at 4 wins, so the winner here is getting ahead of the competition and getting close to stamping that first round bye. Yeah, it's and I think that we've seen throughout this series that the people who are willing to be flexible are the people who are succeeding in this. And Spids, obviously, if there's one person who's incredibly flexible, it's Spids. Finally ended up bringing the Neela last week. Ended up going with Ken and Neela, which is I've highlighted it before. I feel like just Spids' ability to take the card Kennen and throw Kennen into literally every single pile possible. I swear that Spids alone has furthered our understanding of Kennen by leaps and bounds. Has put more time into this champion, has done more with this champion than anybody on the planet.
When you guys tune in for Champion Draft Series Season 3 and the cost of Kennen has gone way up, you guys will know why.
Yeah,
it's going to be entirely Spids' fault.
Yeah, I think she's brought Kennen literally every single week. And it's in a different pile every single week. Sometimes it's Iodia, sometimes it's Bandles, sometimes it's Shell Folk, sometimes it's, Beatdown, sometimes it's aggro. There's just so much stuff that Spids has been able to do with this, this unassuming little Yordle. It's very impressive. And I think that it just makes Spids all that much harder to prep for. To be fair, I think a lot of what Spids does is usually towards this mid-rangey game plan. I think it's a lot of what she leans towards. So you do have that as sort of your North Star. It's okay, if I can beat mid-range, I might have a pretty good shot here. But yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a crapshoot sometimes.
But I don't think, I completely agree with everything you said, but I don't think that Sir Termund is a pushover either. He's also very high in the competition for a reason, and he has also been able to flex a lot with his champions, especially now that Cosmic Call's been nerfed and he's sort of been forced to go away from that. He's been getting a lot more creative with his deck building and sort of matching up into his opponents. He has his decks that he likes to favor and likes to bring out. I think he's brought Evelyn Maokai almost every week. He really likes that deck, even though you watch the VODs that he puts on his YouTube channel. Every match he's playing this deck, he's having a heart attack. But he's pulling it off with them.
I think that Maokai Maokai Mill is a very real deck. It's a very reasonable deck, much more than I think that a lot of people would give it credit for. And even Pisukaru has been playing it to pretty solid success in tournaments. Recently was in the grudge match, one game away from making it to Worlds, and was playing Maokai Mill. And Maokai Mill is, a very solid game plan right now, I think. It's sort of slept on, I think. And if Termund, maybe that's the ticket here is Maokai Mill.
Another thing I want to point out is Termund's use of Vladimir in recent weeks, because Vladimir is not a champion that you really think of as a very powerful champion, but dude's shown if you have a full board of Yordles, you can just play Vladimir and deal 5 damage to any unit.
Yeah, no, it's definitely Vladimir. I think is much stronger now, and obviously than before the rework. But I think that once he ends up getting rotated back in a standard, he'll be a menace, and we'll realize how strong this champion really is. The amount of pressure that he can apply just on play is very impressive. And then obviously being used here very effectively for the Noxus region, letting him play Tree, letting him play some nice removal, and then having this beatdown game plan. If Tree doesn't get there.
And I almost feel that against Spids, you probably want to bring Volibear. I feel like you want to have an ability to go bigger than her. I think that having Frostbites against a lot of these units are pretty good. I think if you're expecting like a more aggressive lineup like Spid has brought previously with like Draven or Gwen lists or even just like Lucian lists or Kennen lists, like Avalanche or Blighted Ravine, pretty good into those kind of decks. Even just like killing a swath of Poros just on board, pretty useful. I feel like if I had to bet on a champion that he might bring into this match, I'm almost certain that Volibear is like the value there is just like too unreal.
I think Volibear makes a lot of sense. I think that if there was one criticism that you could have for tournament, I think that he hasn't utilized the Volibear very well. He's brought it one time before, and it was just as an endure list, and like endure's pretty solid. But I feel like he's very very limited in that, and sort of exploring what Volibear can bring to his lineup. To be fair though, as far as like region combinations go, I think that Tournament has very strong regions, but doesn't have an insane amount of flexibility here. So isn't quite able to cook as much as you otherwise might expect for something like Volibear. But I think it's a fair call out that something like Volibear might be really solid into Spids. I think that Maokai might be pretty good into Spids as well. The other issue, though, is that a lot of these decks that Tournament has been favoring have been like some more like control-y piles, and sometimes the control piles get run over by the right mid-range lists. So it's definitely a consideration and definitely something that Tournament has to be concerned about.
One of my next questions I was about to ask you is one of the decks that Tournament has been favoring a lot in recent weeks has been Twisted Fate Ezreal. Just being able to like play Twisted Fate, get the Sunken Temple on the board, level him up like within a turn. If you are Spids with your current roster and your current options, how scared are you of that kind of deck? Do you think you can run over those units? Or
yeah, I don't think so. Like the weakness of the of the TF Ezreal type of like temple deck is that you don't like if your opponent's able to deal with your Twisted Fate or the landmark, then your deck becomes a lot weaker. And then also sometimes you do just get run over. You're a little bit slow sometimes. Sometimes your early units like aren't really lining up particularly well. Sometimes your removal isn't lining up particularly well. So there's definitely a possibility for a lot of what Spids is bringing to be very good into that style of deck here from Term. And that said, that style of deck it's really strong, and when it pops off, it pops off. I will say though, not having access to Neela makes it a little bit less consistent of a deck. But still very strong champions. I do want to point out though, I think that if Spids is expecting any amount of control out of Tournament, then maybe Poro King. Poro King is a pretty good champion that is very strong in standard, and I think that has an opportunity here to be very strong for Spids as well. With like Leona or something for the Targon, but yeah.
I think when Spids has brought Poro King, she has been favoring like Poro King Sejuani for Freljord, but I think I agree with you that you could potentially dive into other regions for this certain matchup. Maybe even I almost disagree with myself already, but Poro King Kaisa for like a bunch of not just keyword shenanigans, but having access to things like quicksand, and I kind of already don't like that.
I'm seeing the vision though. I'm seeing the vision. I like where your head's at. But yeah, I do think that there's a lot available here for Spids. I feel like just from a lineups perspective, I think that Spids is probably advantaged. I think a lot of like the mid-range stuff that she's doing is going to be pretty solid into Term. And that said, Tournament has strong champions, has access to really strong decks, and I think if he's able to find like an angle on it, could end up being pretty good. But a lot of it just comes down to it's really hard to prepare for players like Spids because Spids is just so flexible and brings such different decks each week. Even if I do tell you it's all under the mid-range archetype, like that only tells you so much. Yeah. And the way that one mid-range deck isn't necessarily the way that another one plays, so it could be very difficult.
Absolutely, but I do think that Termund has been able to, like, several times this season now, pull out some very clutch, close victories. He's been able to do exactly that in many different matchups. I could quote, like, his more recent matchup versus Jason. I forget if that was week 5 or week 6. I think it was week 5. No, it was week 6. Week 5 was against Roji. With like his utilization of like Dead Bloom Wanderers to get what was otherwise like very, very close.
Yeah.
He is a player.
He has tools.
Yeah, and he is a player who takes his opponent's lineups into consideration. He doesn't just bring the same thing or bring decks just for the heck of it. He will take Spids' roster into consideration. What he gets out of it, who knows?
Yeah, but I think you're 100% right. You know, I love his champions. I really love his champions. I see like his Aphelios PNC decks that he's playing, and I'm like, damn, this looks like a lot of fun. I wish I had Turbines lined up. I wish I was playing this stuff. Yeah, no, I love Turbines lineup. I think I say that every week. And I love a lot of what he's bringing here. But I would give the advantage to Spids, but Turbine can get there. Absolutely.
All right, I think. So if we had you say you give your advantage to Spids if we're giving our final call?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I will give my advantage to Sir Termund for no reason other than to just choose something different.
I do think that Termund, you know, has like the flexibility there. You know, the Maokai game plan can be surprisingly difficult to deal with, to be honest with you.
It can be very fast sometimes.
Yeah, Maokai. Yeah, no, I've been Maokai milled many times as a friend of Roji. I don't know if you know, Roji loves Maokai mill.
I didn't know that.
And every single patch he'll make me play Maokai mill, and he'll make me play against Maokai mill. And the amount of times I've been milled on like turn 6, it's like, wow, this is unreasonable. This is absolutely unreasonable. I think that, you know, that sort of thing is available. The Volibear decks, whatever Volibear deck ends up being, I think could be really strong as well. There's a lot of options here for Termund. Like I could definitely see a path where he makes it. But yeah, I think I gotta go with Spids. I mean, come on, there's no way Spids would let me down. There's no way.
All right. Well,
how many different Kennen decks has Spids brought?
I know she's brought Shellfolk more than once, but I think
Kaisa Kennen.
I think at least 5.
Kennen Leona, Kennen Gangplank, Kennen Neela. There's 6 weeks, and she's brought 5 different Kennen decks. And I know when we say different Kennen decks, they are very different. Other than, well, let's check Kennen Gangplank and Kennen Neela. Are these similar decks?
No, I think one's like Pink City and one's like almost. I think the Kennen is supposed to function almost like a Nora in that space.
Yeah. They look similar too. You know, they're basically the same.
Yeah, one's a 1/2, one's a 2/1.
Yeah. No, one of these is a Tide Dancer deck, and one of these is a Riptide Rex. Yeah. No, I God. Kennen is max points next CDS, right? Like
maybe not max, but I definitely think he's going to be more expensive going into the next season. I think Spids is proving that.
Well, okay, so the thing is that Kennen, like, it's funny to point out Kennen, but like, I think that Kennen's been used for Bandle like 4 of these 5 times. Is that right? Like, it's just Bandle units, right? It's just the fact that Bandle units like give you that secondary access. So if you find like, you know, I don't know what the secondary thing is. Like, it's just nice because Kennen's a 1-drop. But like Teemo, I think that would be a one that like does literally the exact same thing. I don't know where Teemo is priced compared to Kennen. But you know, even Fizz does the exact same thing too.
Yeah, so it's going to be this. I still stand by what I was saying about this being the match of the week, but I mean, there's going to be a lot of good matches, and I think that this is going to be a good one.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, I was done. What did you say?
Oh no, I do think like this one has like major playoff implications. The other one as well. The other one also like has, you know, like some of the biggest brewers. I think that both of these are just incredible matchups. I think this is a really big week for almost everyone. You know, even if you aren't fighting at the top of the standings, you're fighting to get to the top of the standings. And I think that you're coming down to the line, and this is the time where it matters.
Don't forget, you're also fighting to get first grabs for like trades in the week of the expansion coming out, so everything matters.
How about you tell me, you've seen the 3 champions, right? You've seen Mordekaiser, Morgana, and Elder Dragon. Which one are you most excited for as a player, And which one are you most excited for as a CDS potential champion?
Okay, I'll be honest with you. I ended up being a lot more excited for Elder Dragon than I thought I was going to be. When they revealed it, I was like, "Holy shit! This is a lot more than I expected." And it's really cool. And I think as a player, that's the one I'm most excited for. However, getting two non-Bandle multi-region champions in the champion draft series, I think is huge. I think that matters a lot. Like the flexibility that multi-region champions give you as far as like region access goes is, I think, very powerful. I think that is we'll have to. I'm not making any promises because we haven't like priced the champions yet, and I don't know what those prices are going to be just yet. But I have to imagine that Morgana is going to be like very, very desirable for both the Targon and Demacia access, as well as just like everything that she does and how she can counter like a lot of strategies that players in this series might be bringing.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think that the flexibility is the name of the game, especially when you look at these multi-region champions. I think that they are going to be very desirable.
All right. Well, before we end the stream, I have an announcement that I think people might be excited for. So this is the second season of the Champion Draft Series. And ever since I conceptualized this idea, so the first evening started, there was something I really wanted to do. I think the greatest, I want to say weakness, but like the biggest downside of something like the Champion Draft Series is that we have limited seats. And that's just because of the nature of how a draft series works. Like if we got to a point in the game where there were 1,000 champions in this game, which is pretty far away, we would still only have like 90 something seats available to players. We could not just have like an open with like everyone being invited and such. So I've definitely been wanting to get the viewers a chance to participate in like the most fun part about the Champion Draft Series, which is the draft. And that's something that I've really wanted to bring. If you have been on the sheet, and this is the private player sheet that we're on because of the matchup tables, but if you guys are on the sheet, you'll notice there is a stats page, and you might be like, oh, this is cool. It's showing a lot of the stats that happen each game. That's a cool thing. But what value is this? Well, and I think I can do this. If I just do this in chat right here. Yes, the official fan spreadsheet. If I open the fan spreadsheet right here, you will see there is a new tab on this sheet that tallies up how many points a champion has received over the course of the season. I want to open up Fantasy League drafting in the Champion Draft Series so that everyone can draft their champions, compete in leaderboards, like build their own rosters, and like get points based off of how the players and their champions perform in the series so that you can play along as well. And I'm really excited to sort of bring something like this to the Champion Draft Series. We are already more than like halfway through this season, and there's still some stuff where like how things are worth points that I want to test out. So this is going to be a bit more of a beta, but I will send the link to the form to submit your teams in chat, and I will submit it soon on Discord as well. But essentially, this goes into a new spreadsheet, and sometime after the Week 7 games are performed and we collect all of the stats, we will start to post a leaderboard of just like viewers like you at home and like the teams that you have built based off of champions in the Champion Draft Series. And you can go to this sheet and you can see like this is how much the champion is like priced worth, and this is like how many points they've earned each week, and like it's organized by like total, so you can see like which champion you would be more desirable. Sejuani actually doing very well for Spids. And we were talking about Kennen. Kennen's being brought every week. Kennen 8 cost, very potential valuable champion for you to add onto your team. So I'm really excited for this. I'm really excited to build upon this in future seasons. I do have... I sort of want to apologize that some of you will have to do a little bit of math when putting your teams together. I do want to automate that a little bit in the future, but for now you will have to like look at the price of champions when building your team, which you can do here or in like the draft tiers where everything's organized by price. And this is why on the fan sheet this stuff hasn't been moved along to the drafted sheet, but you guys still have access to like where the price of each champion is, and you can see the rosters and like which players have what. This has been updated for the player sheet, but hasn't been updated for this. So I'm just going to do that now. NA production.
That's actually really cool, though. The opportunity for people to sort of get a chance at on their own to pick out their champions that they feel like would do well. I mean, that's actually really cool.
Yeah, and when we do this alongside with like full seasons, I would very much like to reward top performers and find like this is, like I mentioned, sort of a bit of a beta because there are some like things we're testing out and we only have like a few weeks left in the season, so you'll only be doing this for a few weeks and not like doing a whole seasonal journey. But I am going to post the form in chat right now. I believe that is the link. And you guys don't have to make this submission like right now. You can strategize. You can look at rosters and points and stuff, but you're going to want to get it in before the games, because then, of course, we're going to lock things down, which will be taking place Monday afternoon. Man, oh man, does Majin Bey know how to draw Rise? Like, all the time. Like I know this man brings Rise all the time, and I know that, like, this is the champion that you want to draw in your deck, but by God, does he draw Rise a lot.
Yeah, he's built different.
Mm-hmm.
He's built different. I wonder if, like, should they get points for getting banned?
That is one thing that we have been considering. That's not how it is currently in this place, but that is definitely something that stood out. Another thing that we might be changing, another thing that I think, like I'm already considering, is changing the points for a champion getting played to points to a champion being summoned. There are a lot of intricacies in like how that works, but the main reason I want that, there's like 10 reasons I can list out, but the main reason I want that is because Jarvan is just not getting any points because he's never being played from hand.
That's so funny. Okay, so the question then is, if I soul cleave my Kennen, then am I getting infinite points?
That technically,
and if so, can I pay Spids to soul cleave Kennen for me?
That is potentially something that could happen, but you get the most amount of points from the champion actually winning their games, which if you're soul cleaving Kennen might not be the best line to do so.
It like levels Kennen, right? That's 3 Kennens. That's so many Kennens.
It kind of sort of.
No, that's really cool though.
Yeah,
that's really exciting.
We will be evaluating how points are distributed. I think I'm also personally of the opinion of experimenting with giving more points to a champion for leveling up, because some champions are like very hard to level up, and I think that's that's something that should be rewarded. But there's also like the champions that can kind of level up more than once or stuff like
maybe
that.
Maybe like max once per game or something.
We might have to put in that rule. But this is how we've been evaluating points throughout the season so far, and I have to go back to every game and like change that for like the score in order to like accommodate for if we changed like play to summon or something like that. So this is how things are set for this beta. We are experimenting with things, but we will. I'm not gonna pull it up because it's a mess, but I've got spreadsheets with where all your data and submissions will be stored, and that will turn into a sheet on this spreadsheet with the leaderboard once we have all of those submissions.
Yeah, that's really cool. The opportunity for everyone to get involved, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I want to give you guys, you viewers, a chance to actually participate in the Champion Draft Series, because I want to give people more chances to like play in the Champion Draft Series, but we only have so many seats in the series, and like it's gonna be such a long and dreadful process to give like everyone a chance to play. So I want to give people a chance to participate in the series regardless of whether you're a player or not. And who knows, maybe we can in future seasons give like a seat to a player who does very well in the fantasy scoring to a future season. So there's a lot of potential with this, and there's a lot more that I want to build up on it, but I'm really excited to get these to you. Spids, you know how many points Sivir has. You know how many points Sivir has. Sivir has absolutely none. No one has played Sivir this whole series.
Feels bad, man.
Mm-hmm. And then there's 3 non-availables because we're going to have 3 new champions in the data pool. So if you're curious about that, that's how that works. Welcome, Raiders from Clen Croa, to the Champion Draft Series. I will post the info page again if you guys want to follow along on the competition. We are doing the pregame show for Week 7, or I should say wrapping up the pregame show for Week 7. We sort of went through all of the matches and things. But, yeah. I look forward to seeing the teams that you guys build and submit, and for, like, what, and, like, I want to see who does what and, like, what strategies like end up being very valuable. Obviously, champions that look like they've been doing very well over the course of the season could be like very valuable for your teams. But also, like, even Sejuani or Kennen or Rise have had weeks where they've made 0, and that might just be like these next few weeks. Who knows? It might be
like it's also like the stock market, you know? It's following
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Mm-hmm. So again, that's another thing. You're gonna really want to follow these players and their games if you want to like get a good idea of what they are interested in or what they are planning on encountering. And you're gonna want to watch me and Aikado talk about the matches and what we expect the players to bring, so that you can maybe have a better idea of like what to invest in. We're your stockbrokers right now.
This is not financial advice, but invest in Kennen stocks.
All right, yeah, the only thing that again, apologies, you will have to add up the prices yourself. You don't have to build a team with like 10 champions. You can do as these other players do and do like a roster of 8 or 9 if you really want. You can choose like all of the 15 cost champions you want, and like get all the 15s and 14s and only have like 6 champions if you want. Like that is
It'll be interesting to see somebody do like a money ball, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like this is the best points per price here. So actually you should have a team of 10 different. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely
Teemo's got some points this season.
I think it's funny, by the way. I was talking about how Kennen and Teemo are the same champion. Kennen costs 8, Teemo costs 14. Holy shit.
That is for many reasons, but one of them being a greater value of PNZ over Ionia.
I think that is anti-PNZ bias, and frankly, I'm offended.
You're against us saying that PNZ is one of the better regions in the game?
Yeah, have you seen Freljord? Come on, what's the... Gnar, is Gnar 20 points?
Gnar was... I mean, nothing's 20 points. Gnar... I want to say Gnar was like 12, but we can...
Yeah, Gnar should probably be pretty expensive, but yeah.
Gnar was 12. Look at that. I know my stuff.
Look at you. Look at you.
I did, in fact... I was one of the members who priced the champions.
Yeah.
So I was in that call.
PNZ's okay, I guess. Gosh.
Mm-hmm. Also, remember, we priced the champions like during Jenna release. So,
yeah.
like, Jenna was nerfed since then, and stuff like that. So,
Or Gianna.
I forget if Heimer was nerfed by that point or not.
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
Heimer was not nerfed because Majin picked it.